kiddos, it's Adimoshi as Karrot. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to fur a foam head base. So I won't hold you here any longer, let's just get right into the video. So here I have my finished head base, and I'm just going to take little strips of masking tape and apply it all over the fursuit head, making sure that the pieces of masking tape overlap each other in like a crisscross kind of pattern. Some pieces will be a little bit bigger for the bigger areas around the nose and inside the mouth, and little like really hard to reach places I will use smaller strips of masking tape, but whatever works as long as there is no foam showing. Some fursuit makers will just do half the head and then they'll just mirror that pattern for the other side. But for me, I prefer just doing the whole entire head with masking tape all over. It seems to work for me. I want to make sure that the duct tape is layered thick enough to adhere to the foam, but also not too thick where I can't cut through it either. I do smaller strips for the little cheek fur foam pieces and like around the nose, inside the mouth, but making sure that it retains the shape of the foam. I personally like using masking tape because it's so much easier to draw on. So here I am drawing out the pattern. If your fursuit character has any patterns, different colors, you would draw those out, and plus all the areas where you want to cut the suit anyway. I try to make it as symmetrical as much as possible from side to side, but just drawing lines where I want to cut all of these pieces. Here I'm making a template for the eyebrow. He's going to have big blue eyebrows, so I just cut out a paper template and traced it and just mirrored it for the other side, making sure that they're even. Here I'm taking a different color marker and I'm just labeling all of the different sections of the pattern, making sure I draw the fur direction, the color, the length of fur. I usually like to pre-shave any of the fur that's going to be short, like on the face. I like to shave it when it's still flat before sewing. It makes it so much easier. I'm doing the inside of the mouth, and now I'm ready to cut these pieces out. A good pair of scissors really helps. And then I take just some scrap paper, newspaper, whatever, scrap paper, and I just tape down these pattern pieces onto that paper. And I recommend to hang on to your pattern until you are finished with furring the head and everything, because just in case you make a mistake, you at least have your pattern and you can retrace it onto fur and redo that piece of fur, because I have absolutely accidentally traced the patterns in the wrong direction, not paying attention to fur direction. So just hang on to your fur pattern until you are completely finished. It will make your life a lot easier. I'm also labeling, once I cut the pieces off the fursuit head and flatten them onto the paper, I will also label the other side with all the information, the color of the fur, the side of the head, because I label which side of the head it goes on, fur direction and all that stuff. So I do that for all of these pieces. Also, I will label if it's minky or if it's long shag fur and things like that. So here I'm actually cutting out little black minky pieces for the nostril. I wanted them to be a different color. So the nose is blue, but the nostril I want it to be black. And this is also the mouth lining. I will sew these two pieces together and little darts. Here I'm tracing the eyebrow pieces. I'm making the eyebrows out of minky. And here is the nose. Traced one side and then flipped it over to, to mirror it. This is the inner part of the ear. So here I'm moving on to the actual luxury shag fur, tracing all of the pieces. The pieces are labeled if they are to be long or be short. I wanted these pieces to be long, so I just went ahead and cut them out. These are cheek fur pieces. I wanted those to be long, so I'm gonna just go ahead and cut them out. I believe this is the back of the head that I'm tracing. So I'm also paying attention to the fur direction and drawing the seam allowance and just going ahead and cutting those out because I want this fur to be long as well. And Gigi always likes to lay on my fur. I can't keep her off of it. I believe this fur is from fursuitsupplies.com. This is still fur on the back of the head, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. These pieces are going to be on the front, the face and muzzle and around the eyes. So these pieces I'm going to pay attention to the fur direction, trace them, add their seam allowance, but I'm also not going to cut these pieces out because I want to shave this rectangle piece of fur. And here is the back and the front of the ears. I want those to be short, so they will also be in a square or rectangle. Barely had enough fur for this project, just enough. Yeah, I always prefer pre-shaving. I call it pre-shaving. It's basically planning out what you want to be shaved and just cutting out these pieces like this and just shaving down Now I will do some more shaving once the fur is on the head. It's like a touch-up shave. A lot of planning ahead before you're doing the work really helps cut down mistakes. But this is an insanely messy process, and in this clip you can't see, but I am wearing a respirator and I'm wearing some goggles. This process is so worth it though. Pre-shaving all of this is worth it. It makes it a little easier to work with too when you are ready to sew and glue down fur onto the face. But every fursuit maker has their preferred method. This is not the one and true only way, just the way that I find the easiest for me. So I just recommend it. So once it's all nice and shaved down, at least enough for now, I will cut these pieces out. Cut out the darts. The pre-shave doesn't have to be perfect. You can see the end is kind of still a little shaggy. It's okay. It's not going to be perfect because a touch-up shave will be done later, so it's all good. I use separate scissors for my fur from the scissors that I use for cutting foam. These are specifically for fabric, and they really do make a world of a difference in cutting fabric than the other ones that I use for cutting foam. And I only use these for cutting fabric, and it helps to keep them sharper. So here I am ready to start sewing darts and sewing pieces together. You can do this all by hand. The first fursuit head, Karrot 1.0, I did that head all by hand, but it takes forever. It takes like a bazillion years. I do recommend a sewing machine. It greatly increases the speed that you complete this project, but it is not a requirement. I do like this sewing machine a lot. I think I spent no more than like $300 on this, so this is not like, it's not the cheapest, but it's not like some super high-end either. So here, I'm working on the little nostril pieces. There's actually, the nostril pieces actually have a little dart in them, so I had to do that by hand. And then I'm sewing up the nose. I actually did like a little line down the middle. And now I'm gonna hand sew these nostril pieces onto the blue part of the nose. these are the two long back pieces of the head. Just sewing those two together, and then I brush it out, and then this shape should have a nice curve to it. So this piece I'm adding is like the back cheek part on one side. And brush out these seams so you can see that it's kind of got this curved look to it. The darts help with making that curve shape. The little black minky is the inner lining of the mouth, the top and the bottom. So yeah, it's just a lot of pinning and sewing. And here you saw where I had the scissors there, I was actually cutting off some excess seam allowance. Once I'm ready to glue the fur down, I want it to lay flat. So you can cut off excess seam allowance, just don't get too close to the seam. So now I'm working on the face, the muzzle, the chin, you know, just the entire face. And I will lay the pieces on the fursuit head and like pin it down. The duct tape pattern will help out a lot with figuring out what goes where. There are some pieces where I will have to just hand sew because it's too small of an area. It's just easier to do it by hand. I'm sewing around the eyes there, connecting small little pieces. That would be a little too hard to do on the sewing machine. Yeah, your duct tape pattern will always be your reference, so if you can't figure out where these pieces go, using the duct tape pattern really helps. So yeah, I'm basically sewing these fur pieces together that loop the eye. If you see, it kind of covers up the eyes a little bit. I added a little extra material around the eyes. I'll cut away the excess later, but I always like to work with a little extra material around the eyes. I'd rather there be too much than too little, so I will cut away any excess once the fur is glued down around the eyes. Also, I hand sewed these minky eyebrows onto the face fur because that was just a really hard job to do on the sewing machine, and I tried and it didn't work out. I did this ladder stitch all the way around and just did that for both. I'm sewing on the other eyebrow. Here I am sewing on the muzzle to the cheeks and the chin. So now I'm test fitting it. It looks so weird with the fur covering the eyes. So now I'm connecting the top to the bottom of the face. So I'm test fitting it again, looking pretty good. I kept my pattern in that little shoebox. And now I'm ready to start sewing together these little cheek fluff. I made them very big. He's got very big cheek fluff. There was a front and a back side to the cheek fluff. So I'm sewing the cheek fluff to the front, and then I do the back side. There were two little pieces that sewed together, and then it made one big piece that was either the front or the back side. So now I'm testing the fit, and now I'm going to work on the ears. I'm going to sew the inner part of the ear onto the orange fur. Getting to the very top corner with the sewing machine was really weird, so I sewed as much as I could, and then the very top corner I just hand sewed. It's just a really awkward corner to try to sew and to make it look proper. And now I take the front and the back of the ear pieces and clip those together, and then I'm going to sew that on the sewing machine. I made him have really big ears this time, and I like it. I love the way that they look. So I'm cutting off the excess seam allowance, or right side out, and brushing it out, and then fitting it onto the fursuit. And then I just repeat the same process for the other ear. Yeah, I'm cutting off seam allowance. Sewing up that little corner, the top corner there. And then I sew the back and the front together. Love these little sewing clips and a cute little tin that they come in. I cut off the seam allowance if there's too much. Sometimes I draw a little extra. And I brush out the seams best I can, and I fit it onto the ear. So now I'm working on the inner lining of the mouth. And also I did the little dots that go on his face, like around the muzzle where the whiskers come out. And now I'm starting to glue down the nose. So I pin it on and get it where I want, and then I start gluing it down. Making sure I get into those nostrils really good too. So he's got black nostrils. And then I pin on the lower mouth lining. Make sure it's all positioned correctly, and then I start gluing it down and making my way over. And then I do the same with the top. The top lining is a little harder to reach, but basically the same process. You gotta go slow and careful, making sure everything's nice and smooth and even and everything's positioned correctly. So here I drew little circles, the little blue dots on his muzzle will be. Basically they're so small that I have to do this by hand. I just drew a little template and cut out the little blue minky dots and then sewing them on by hand. I cut one hole at a time. I rather cut one hole and only have to fix one hole. I would cut a hole, sew the blue dot until it was the way I wanted it, and then I would move on to the next. So I just showed one, but here the rest are on the muzzle. And now I'm beginning to glue down the fur to the head. I always start with the middle between the eyes, basically starting with the very middle of the face and radiating outward. I want to make sure that all the fur is glued down, that there's no spots that didn't get glued down, and that you can pull up the fur from the fursuit head and it just makes it look a little weird and awkward. Here I was repairing a little tear in the foam, and then I start gluing the cheek fluff to the actual foam pieces. And now I'm gonna start pinning the back part of the head on. And I start gluing from the middle and then going outward. So I do one side completely and then I'll do the other. I start with the middle and go all the way out to the cheek fluff until it's completely glued down, and then I will do the other side. So yeah, he's got long hair, long fur in the back. You just got to be patient with the glue. It's going to take a while, but making sure it's fully dried. And now I'm starting to free his eyes. So I cut the excess fur away and then glue down the little edges around the fur that's still loose around the eyes. I glue it all the way down. But I do very, very little glue and be very, very careful. Just cleaning up around the eyes, making sure it's all nice and glued down. And then I did the other side the same way. And then I'm ready to move on to gluing down the ears. I glue the tip and then I roll the fur onto the ear down and glue a little section at a time until I reach the base. But I don't glue it all the way down because I want a little bit of a lip of fur around the base of the ear so that I can hand sew that fur to the head. So here I'm starting to sew the middle of the head so the back and the front are connected. Just brushing out the seam, and then I'm going to sew the nose to the fur and just sew all the way around. I'm going to use little strips of fleece to go around the nose, the eyes and stuff to hide these rough edges, but that'll be in the next video. For now, we're just worrying about furring and sewing. And now I'm going to work on sewing the inner lining of the mouth to the orange fur. I use a black upholstery thread. So I just started with the corner of the mouth and making my way to the other corner, and then I'll do the same for the top. I will also add whiskers and things like that in the next video. This is not the final fursuit head in this video. This is just the furring. His hair tuft and whiskers and little things like that will be added in the next video. So yeah, I'm doing the top mouth lining, starting in the corner, making my way all the way to the other corner. It's very awkward trying to reach in there. Also, I'm using a curved needle. Curved needles are a fursuit maker's best friend. I love this thing. If I had to recommend any item, I guess, that will make your life easier as a fursuit maker, well, even with a sewing machine, you will still do stuff by hand like this. So many other fursuit makers highly recommend a curved needle. So now I'm sewing like basically around the sides of the head. I'll do the ears last. But now I'm ready to actually sew the front cheek fluff fur to the back. So I just go all the way around. Yeah, this is a type of stitch that will not show the thread from the outside. I will also have to make a neck, but that will be in the next video as well. So I'm just brushing out the seam. Now I'm starting to sew the ear fabric to the head fabric. So I just started with the top of the head in the corner there, and I'm just going to make my way all the way around. I took the head off the mannequin head, just easier to maneuver the head around as I'm sewing in all these weird awkward spots, especially at the lower part of the ear. My cat Skittles, he loves when I hand sew because he wants to play with the string. He likes hanging out there and watching me do my work anyway. I'm taking a pair of scissors and just trying to clean the seam, and I do the same for the other. This is basically a fursuit head that is furred. So he's not complete, he still has more work that needs to be done, but this is how you basically fur a fursuit head, the foam head base. He still needs touch-up shaving. It's a lot easier to work with a head that's already pre-shaved like this, but he still looks shaggy. There's areas where the fur is a little bit longer. In the next video, I'm going to be doing his hair tuft, his neck, adding whiskers and lining around the eyes and the mouth and the nose, and just adding the final details and making him look all so pretty and cute. I'm showing off the follow me eyes, the 3D follow me eyes. His eyes are so big. I did put this fursuit head on and tried it, and the vision is pretty crazy. It's got fantastic vision for obvious reason. His eyes are so freaking big. It's a fully lined head. I know you can't really see very well in there, but it is fully lined. And I sewed the mouth. I don't think I showed this, but I did sew the inner lining of the mouth to the lining of the inside of the head as well. So no foam is showing on the inside, unlike the other two fursuit heads I've made. But yeah, he's done. Alright, so there you have it. A fully furred fursuit head. So like I said, there's going to be one more part to do all the finishing touches. I'm going to make his hair tough and add whiskers and, you know, other little details, his teeth and his tongue and things like that. So that will be in the next video, just the final touches. After that, he will be completed. And then I'll do a little video showing him off and stuff. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and
I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. See you later, alligator.